Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and I have the pleasure today of working on a reel that a person gave to my grandson. So apparently they were no longer interested in fishing. They had the equipment sitting in their garage or shed for quite some time, and well, he's the proud recipient of a Silstar VX35 size VX35 fishing reel, which is ideal for what he does. He does some freshwater fishing and bass fishing. Comes home from school and puts the pole on the bicycle and heads out and does a little bit of local pond fishing, and this one will fit well. So this reel is working. That's a nice thing to be. We can see that there's very heavy grease and the like, so it's either a lot of grease kind of just seeped out of the case, the dust and whatever it is in the shed, the dirt and the like, just kind of clogged this reel up. And well, we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how it's made and get this serviced, and he'll have it back for the fall fishing season. This is not a badly made reel. It's made in Korea, and it has 4 ball bearings in the reel, and it also has an instant anti-reverse. So it's one of the later reels that were made by Silstar before they went out of business. And well, let's see what it's got. We're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces. While we do that, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button to alert you as to when I'm posting new videos. I try to post on a daily basis. I work on all kinds of reels. The other day I was just working on a huge Penn Senator reel. And today I'm working on a freshwater reel. So I take on all comers. Basically, you're looking over my shoulder in my shop, and you get to see what it is that people are sending me and how to service those reels. Learn a little bit about them, learn their usage and the like, and maybe a little bit about the manufacturer's history and so on. And well, it's kind of a good way to build a hobby if you have this interest in mind. Build a small business if you want to do that. There's seems to be fewer and fewer people out there servicing reels these days, and well, just generally have some fun with an extension of the fishing hobby. Well, one of the things that's going to be important with this reel is just cleaning it up, and I just use some pen rod and reel cleaner on a little corner of a kitchen scrubby to go ahead and get that dirt and junk off of there. I find that pen rod and reel cleaner does a nice job of not only cleaning, but maybe a little bit of polishing in there as well. And the kitchen scrubby is just a little bit more abrasive than a paper towel, so it's helpful to use that as you go about your cleaning without worrying about marring up the piece. Well, I'm going to put this in for now. I'm going to come back and do the drag washers in here, but we want to get down to business with this thing. And I think next up we'll take that handle off. Now you want to check with a handle, is this button moving? Generally, if that button is not moving as you're turning the handle, well, that handle will unscrew. If you have any resistance at all to turning that handle to unscrew it, remove the cap and make sure that there is not a screw in there. Daiwa seems to be famous for putting a screw in here, and other manufacturers have done it as well. In this case, you can see that you can interchange the handle to a right-hand side drive, but there is no screw that's holding that handle in. I'm going to leave that button off because we're going to clean this case, and that's the best way to get around that. Okay, we have 2 options here. We can remove the rotor right away, or we can remove the side plate. I'm going to go with removing the side plate first. That way we'll find out how the axle shaft is attached, and we'll go over there. So a lot of people ask me about Silstar and what was it, and the best I can find in terms of histories is that it was a company that was created to make a brand for a bunch of fishing reel distributors to compete against, well, the name brands, the Penns and the Daiwas and the like. And they did a nice job. There's a lot of reels out there that were done nicely. They contract manufactured them. For the most part, they didn't make them themselves, but rather used job shops or trade reel shops to do that. Last known address was in South Carolina. They had combined, so if you see a Pinnacle reel, that was also part of the same company. They had combined, and then I think around 2008, if I'm not mistaken, they went out of business. It could have been earlier, it could have been later, but I guess that 2008 makes sense because that was the last financial collapse, and I guess if you owed money or weren't well capitalized or that, well, chances are you didn't survive something like that. So we've just taken off the case. We see underneath here that that is not one of the 4 bearings. That is a bushing on the main gear, which makes me wonder where they put the bearings. I always do. I've taken a small screw out from the crosswind block right here. That's going to enable me to remove the axle shaft by pulling up. You'll notice that the axle shaft is kind of covered, maybe even stained with the old grease. No, it's in good condition. And folks wonder, you know, how do you save a couple of dollars on fishing reel manufacturer, and how do you come up with a reel that's a little bit less expensive than the name brands? And one of the ways to do that is in the materials. So they use the bushing rather than a bearing on that side. Now this is going to get real curious because they've used the bushing on the back as well. So where they put those bearings is going to even get more interesting or intriguing as we go along. So you saw that I removed the main gear, and as I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray so that I can locate them when it's time to reinstall. The other thing of note here is that I take pictures. I'm using a video camera. You don't have to take videos, but I use that as a reference point. So if I find that I'm stuck on the reassembly of a reel, maybe I've forgotten the orientation of a part, or maybe the sequence that I took them off in, well, that helps me to regain my confidence and go ahead and put them back. This is the oscillation gear. This is the crosswind block. This makes the axle shaft go up and down. It gets pedaled by the small gear on the back of the main gear. All right, that's the inside. Intriguing to note, this is an instant anti-reverse, and it has an override. So there's not many of the older models that have an override once they switched over to the instant anti-reverse. The reason for that is it costs a little bit more to work that in. And what's the cost? The cost is either monetary, in that you had to pay for another piece of part or something, or it's space. A lot of the older ones that have the override have these big clunky instant anti-reverse clutches. Not so much anymore. They're pretty much been narrowed down. And well, you can see the instant anti-reverse as it works here. There's a little dog arm here that's holding that in. So let's go ahead and see if we can move that so that I can get that out without removing that arm. While I have that off, and before I go much further, I'm just going to use that rod and reel cleaner again. Again, it's Penn rod and reel cleaner. I'm going to see if I can't clean up that old grease and grime and junk on the arm while that rotor is off, so that I can get all of it without kind of bumping my fingers and the like. Yep, I did a nice job there. We'll come over to the side where we left the button off, and we'll just do a nice polish on it. I kind of think my grandson probably won't recognize the reel when it's done. It'll be nice and clean. It'll be fresh and oiled. It was turning nicely, so credit to that for sitting around in a storage for a while, and the fact that it was still spinning. Sometimes the greases and that just coagulate, and well, it just doesn't work like it used to, and may never. All right, I'm just going to use that towel now to wipe that down. See what we can do there. Yeah, nice clean shiny silver. There you go. And this side actually looks pretty good, but as long as I have that stuff on the pad, let's go ahead and do that. Clean all of that up. Well, I probably would do well to find a schematic of this. I don't think this line roller has a bearing. Oh, it does. All right, so there you go. That probably is one of the bearings. I won't say for sure because I'm not going to take it off, but I am going to oil it. The other thing you want to check for, other than the dirt there, you want to check to make sure that the bail closes nice and easily. So I'm just going to put a seam of oil on both of those bail arms there. I'm going to work it in, and I know from before this was snapping pretty good. The bail trip is down below here. That's that metal rod. It's kind of a standard way that folks design those bail trips. It's going to hit a ramp here. You can see the ramp on the back of the base. That ramp is going to push this up, and that's going to fire the bag. All right, that's nice. Nothing wrong with that at all. And again, a lot of what you do when you're doing reel service is just clean, inspect, and check the parts, make sure that they're all good. And if they are, you can pretty much just move on. Let's take this off. This is always something of an exploration. So there's 3 screws in here. When I take them off, I lay them on my bench to make sure that they're all the same size. If they're not, I'm going to mark the location of the smaller one or the longer one. Once I have that off, I should be able to lift this plate. Notice that on this plate we have a circular arc here. That arc is where the anti-reverse is going, and we also have 2 indentations for the stud. Try to put it on any other way, it's probably not going to work well. Well, this is good. This is interesting. It has a modern day collar underneath there with a little stud coming out of it. And again, I'm going to have to move this off to the side so I have the clearance, and we should be able to pull this whole thing out right now. There you go. So I haven't seen this on the modern collars, so credit to Silstar. There's a little ring here that goes inside that collar, which is going to provide the override on the anti-reverse. Take a picture here. This collar has the plastic up on the top side, and if you know these modern day collars, there's usually a metal on the other side. So in this case, that metal is facing down. We also have a pretty big washer that goes on that collar. We have the inner bearing. We have a little bearing washer. We have the inner collar for the anti-reverse. And we have the bearing and our pinion gear. Well, this is clean. So I guess all of the grease that came out of this probably came out of this with the bleeding that we saw in the case there. We're just going to grab some grease. We're inspecting the teeth, make sure that they're not chipped, cracked, broken, bent, or otherwise. And then we'll just get a good amount of grease on that, and then where that bearing is going to ride for the inner race. Take that bearing, put that back on. Next up then would be the collar side. I guess we can put the inner clutch. And we have this big collar that sits on there. Then we have the clutch. Then there's a bearing on top of the clutch. And I missed that piece. That piece belongs below. That piece belongs on the bearing shield. Okay, that goes. And you can see how that bigger rim washer works there. And we have the bearing and a little bearing washer on top of that. Find your override. That's the slot where the stud side is going to go. Press all of that down. Find your collar. There's 2 sides to that collar. Make sure that you install it properly. The flat side was up when we took this off. Below you can see that there's a series of ridges in there. And we can see that I think that probably doesn't matter on the reinstall. It doesn't. Make sure that you get those 2 slots aligned, and you can go for your 3 screws that are going to tie that down. If you have a question on this reel or any reel, if you leave it in the comment section, I will try to answer your question for you. And maybe you're working on something, you're a little stuck. Well, if you're stuck, I'll try to get you unstuck. Sometimes I don't know the answer. Please be patient. Sometimes I'll try and find the answer. If anybody knows the answer to why or how Fenwick model numbers are sequenced, there's a code. And I've broken the code on most of them, but I have a question from one of our viewers about the PB series, and I do not know what the PB stands for. A lot of times on a Fenwick rod, you'll see like FF, which is for fly fishing, or you'll see something preceded by an E for eagle model, or HMG, or those. I just haven't seen one on the PB series. So if you know what that one is and can help out our viewer, that would be appreciated. Okay, we're coming back to putting this reel around now. We're going to take that oscillation gear. We're going to inspect the teeth on it to make sure that they're all nice and free and clean of grease, and that they're all there. We'll go ahead and put some grease on all sides of this, including the interior hole, the teeth, the face. When you put that gear on, make sure you put it in the down position for the stud. Keep that stud low. You'll remember that we took that axle shaft out, and the only way to get that axle shaft out was to lower down the crosswind block. So start it in the lower position. Next up then, we'll take the crosswind block. If you don't remember which side was up, go to your pictures. This is the up side with the tail on one side of the reel. When you do this, make sure that you are sitting on the stud. It's easy to think you're on the stud and you're not. Please make sure you're on there, otherwise the reel will jam. So I found one ball bearing. It says 4. Kind of makes me wonder where the others are. Even if we put one in the handle, where else are we putting them? I guess the instant anti-reverse clutch. Well, there you go. So we have them pretty much in the stack. You had the big bearing below. You had the instant anti-reverse clutch in that stack, which I'm sure they're counting as a bearing. Sometimes you used to see it as 3+1 or 4+1. We had the small bearing up top, so that's 3, and the line roller would be 4. Kind of a shame that they didn't put them on the main gear. That always helps those gears run much smoother. I get the question a lot. You probably wouldn't do it on this just for cost, but can you replace bushings with bearings? The answer is you can. If you want to do that, take the bushing out of the case, measure it. You're going to measure the interior diameter, the outer diameter, and the height of the bearing or bushing. And if you can find a comparable bearing in that size, you can swap the bearings and the bushings. All right, a little bit of grease on the outer stem of this reel. Now what we want to do is take our axle shaft, which we've cleaned, just a very light coating of grease on this one. Find the flat side with the hole in it. That's the one that's going to be inserted through the pinion gear. And align that crosswind block and make sure that you merge the two and that the hole for the screw is lined up as evidenced by that pick. Go into your parts tray, find the flathead screw, and we can go ahead and tighten that axle shaft down. Those of you that watch the videos know I dropped those screws. Use a little bit of grease. That'll act as a temporary glue as you work to insert and get that screw started. Special shout out to Dick in Philadelphia. He provided me with a small screwdriver that has a flexible tip on it and a collar that as you push that down, it holds it, but this is for flathead screws. And I'm working on a Phillips head screw there, so much appreciated. If anybody knows if there's one of those that works for the screws that are Phillips head based, let me know. I've used it, Dick. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, a little bit of grease inside the bushing. Can snap that case on now. When you put that case back on, make sure that it is seated properly all about. Make sure you get that nice snap, and then go ahead and check the junctures. Well, one of the things I see is I didn't get a real good cleaning there of that old grease. So this is a good time to do it before the rotor and other things get in the way. So those of you that are just starting out in a hobby, maybe you're thinking of expanding it into a business, there's no better way than do this. This one came in from my grandson. Just go find reels from your friends and ask them to volunteer their reels, and tell them that you're learning how to service these, you're looking for experience, and you would be happy to do theirs, and watch your business grow. As I mentioned, you're going to find that there's just not that many folks that are setting out to do this for fun or profit. And well, if you can master a few of the simple skills like we're showing you here on the videos, you can do it too. And that's sort of the whole purpose behind Second Chance Tackle, is to keep these reels going, and more importantly, to show you how to do it yourself. That's a long time ago. Aren't you afraid that if you do these videos, people won't send you reels to service? And my position has been pretty simple. I can't service all the reels in the world. I don't want to service all the reels in the world. I'd rather teach people how to do it themselves. And as long as I can do that, well, maybe we'll have a successful channel. And that's kind of what we're doing here. All right, we've put the rotor back on. Remember what we've done on the rotor. We've oiled that line guide bearing, assuming there's a bearing in there, and we've also cleaned it with that scrubby pad, and we've oiled the seams of the bail arm. Now we're just going to tighten this down. We have the click ratchet and the shim washer for the spool. That's next. This came off of the right side. I should turn this around. My grandson's a lefty. I think he's getting used to cranking the reel with his right hand. A little bit of dirt on this. Let's see if we can't get that off. And this reel's going to go fishing again. That's a nice example of the reel. Again, made in Korea, not junk. So I know it. The problem with the Silstar reels, and I told my grandson this before he brought it over, was if it needs parts, you're out of luck. You got a company that went out of business. I don't believe they ever had good parts support. I know they didn't have good parts support for that sister company, Pinnacle. And well, if you need the part, unless you find a donor reel, you're out of luck. All right, we're removing this little 5-sided clip so that we can service this. My guess is underneath here we probably have felt washers. Felt washers are okay. Penn uses them. Shimano uses them. There's a whole group of reel manufacturers out there that use them. There's nothing wrong with them. People think that felt washers are somehow inexpensive, so that they're not good. They work. Just trying to get the Teflon one out. Gee whiz. There we go. All right, the reason I wanted to do that is that, well, I got to clean the case underneath here. I want to get all the dirt out. A top water reel, top water drag reel, is going to take a beating. It's going to have a knob here. The water's going to come down and in here. That's going to make your drag washers and that pretty dirty. So you want to make sure that you clean out that cavity when you do the service. That's a Teflon washer. That doesn't get anything. Actually, we have 2 Teflons and a felt. Very interesting. The felt was in the middle. So we have 1 Teflon in there. We have 2 round circular, they're called keyed washers. They go high and low. We have an eared washer in the middle, circle in the center, 2 points that lodges in the cavities in the spool. And the assembly goes like this. Teflon washer, keyed washer, felt washer, oil a felt washer. You let it soak right in there. That's to keep that flexible so that it does not tear or break. Eared washer. 2 points go on each side of the spool. Teflon washer, cap washer, or top of the stack keyed washer. Find the slot in the spool. Runs all the way around. Keep your hands on top of this as you do this. Find one point, rotate around, and then seat that whole piece in there. Check to make sure that it's got each point into the groove, and when that's there, you can go ahead and put that back on the reel. Then our button goes next. This is the adjuster button. And if we've done all of this right, we should have one nice smooth 4-ball bearing reel without bearings on the main gear that my grandson can take fishing for some time to go. Oh, we have a nice reel. There you go. And clean too. So that's it. That's your Silstar Vertex 4-ball bearing reel. That's going to be a nice pond reel. It's going to land some bass, I'm sure, and it's going to fish for a long time to come. All cleaned up, no evidence of parts wear. This one can go for a long time to come. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, again, please subscribe, and if you do subscribe, please use the notification button so that you are aware of when I'm doing the reels, and you can make a choice as to whether you want to see that video or not. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything that it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.